Whenever we say, or whenever we identify ourselves with a particular name, I identify myself with Harsha. You identify yourself with a name that's been given to you by your parents. We represent ourselves with a particular name. We say, okay, this person is who I am, and these are the qualities or the characteristics that we have, or these are the habits we have. But there's a much more deeper understanding towards this. When we say that I am so and so, we are representing ourselves as individual consciousness. We are one. I'm 100% sure all of you believe in the universal cosmic energy. So this universal cosmic energy is what is called as Brahmanda, universal cosmos. We are a part of that, and hence we represent ourselves as individual consciousness, what we call as Pindanda. I am nothing but a speck of everything that is there around us. And each and every one of us, being born as a human, is the representation in the form of a speck of this universal cosmos. Let's understand this in detail. I say I'm an individual consciousness. I say I'm Harsha. I have a well-functioning body, mind, and all the organs are functioning, and I have a discriminative intellect. When I say I exist, when I say I'm consciousness, when I say I'm conscious, when I say I'm awake, three things come into picture. When I say I'm the individual consciousness, what is it? For us to exist, we need to have three things. Manas is the mind, Buddhi is the intellect, Ahankara is the ego, third one. When I say, or when you say that I am an individual consciousness, these three things, mind, intellect, ego, each of us are a culmination of these things. We are not just our mind. We are not just our intellect. We are not just our ego. We are a combination of manas, buddhi, and ahankara. Mind, ego, and intellect. Manas, buddhi, ahankara, mind, ego, and intellect together is what we call as individual consciousness, which is nothing but you, which is nothing but me. In yoga, or even when you start your journey on the path of life, you experience a lot of fluctuations with respect to whatever the actions that you're involved in, with respect to the people that you encounter, with respect to work that you do. There are so many fluctuations in your life, externally and internally. And for you to sail through this becomes like a biggest achievement that you can achieve for yourself once you start leading your life. Yoga helps you to understand how you can free yourself from these fluctuations. And you have to understand all the fluctuations that happen here, all the fluctuations that happen here and around you fall into these three categories. Either it's involved with respect to the mind, either it's involved with respect to the intellect, or it's against your ego. When there is conflict or when there is resistance from your side to accept an action, accept some words that have been shared, accept the situations that you encounter, when there is resistance in the mind, in the intellect, in the ego, fighting starts. You start fighting against it. Your mind, your ego, your intellect, all these three come into place. You representing yourself and identifying yourself as only the mind, you saying, okay, I am only the intellect, you saying, I am only the ego. When you represent yourself with only ego, with only the intellect, with only the mind, that's when the problem starts. That is when you start feeling, okay, you're stuck in life. There's no feeling of freedom within you. You never feel free with your own mind You never feel free with the discriminative intellect that you have. You can never differentiate between what is right and what is wrong. And you keep feeding your ego, saying, okay, I know everything that needs to be known. It's not possible. Even after years and years of practices, there are a lot of things which even I don't know. The day you start to think, okay, I know, is the day you do not know. It's as simple as that. We have to grow, we have to glow, and we have to shine by feeding our mind the knowledge that is needed for it to feel free, by feeding our intellect, which helps us to discriminate between what is right and what is wrong, in order for us to understand what is permanent and what is not, for us to understand what is virtue and what is vice. And ego has to exist. See, we cannot exist as humans if we don't have ego. Ego does exist, but it has its own role to play. It's not that that I say now that I have ego and I exhibit and I showcase my ego throughout the day. No. If ego completely vanishes from you, you can't exist as a human. You can't have a human body. You should have reached the state of godliness. Or if someone says that they're completely free of ego, then they should have reached the state of godliness. In fact, for them to say that they are free from ego also requires ego. So, you have to understand this. I am not just the body, I am not just the mind. I am a combination of mind, I am the combination of intellect, and I have a part of ego in me. Each one of us have to keep this in mind. All these three. Manas, Buddhi, Ahankara. Mind, intellect, ego. The more we learn, the more we study the scriptures, the more we study ourselves, we start getting deeper insight about who we are. We start gaining deeper insight of who we are, where we are, why we are where we are. Intellectually, if you stop feeding information that is needed for you to feel yourself like you're alive, you start, and you don't do that for a longer duration, you feel like you're dying on the inside. Intellectual freedom is what is needed right now. Not freedom from a person, not freedom from a situation. No, it is you have to develop skills, you have to develop insight, you have to develop knowledge with respect to a particular action, with respect to the particular people who come into your life. There is a very good reason as to why they came into your life. There's a very good reason why you're experiencing whatever you're experiencing. Instead of understanding the reason behind this, if you start cribbing, if you start fighting, life becomes miserable. There's no freedom at all. You are with this other person, you are in the situation that you wished for, but yet you're not free. Why? Because you don't know, you miss on understanding this. This is very, very important. Each and every one who comes into your life, each and every situation that you face has a lesson. It's a lesson for you to learn. You have to dive deep inside, and you have to know what is right and what is wrong. We definitely lose track of life. We end up making wrong decisions instead of making the right ones. Happens. It's natural. We can't lead a life of perfection. It doesn't happen like that. Lot of trial and error has to happen. And the intellect gets sharper by time. It takes time. But when you start accumulating this knowledge, and once this starts to happen, the mind starts to become strong. But you have to be very careful. Why? The ego starts to get stronger. See, you are understanding, you are gaining knowledge, you're gaining experiences, everything is happening good. But this should humble the ego. You should become humble on the inside. Gaining knowledge, gaining insight, gaining experiences, gaining exposure about your own self. Forget about the world. Any fool can have experience of what the outside world is all about. I'm talking about yourself. Anyone can travel, anyone can be in any part of the world. That is not important. Your mind has to become strong with respect to the intellectual knowledge that you gain about your own self. Just because knowing some worldly affairs, knowing what's happening in the other part of the world doesn't make you strong. It just makes you more miserable. I'm not saying that you have to ignore it completely. It is needed. But what is more important than that is this: knowledge about your own self. Once you start to understand yourself, a sense of clarity starts to come. Since this clarity is zero in most of you, or even in me sometimes, we feel like we are lost. We have to keep pulling ourselves. See, we can't expect inspiration from others. Everyone have their own life to lead. Everyone has their own problems to break their head for. We have to understand, okay, I am a combination of these three. I am the mind, I am the intellect, I am the ego. And you have to feed all these things equally. If you just keep feeding the ego, you'll become arrogant. Even I was very arrogant. You become hot-headed, hot-blooded. Happens. It's the age. When you are like this, you have to go through a lot of beating internally. Don't waste so many years. It's not worth it. Feed the ego to free yourself from the ego. If you keep feeding the ego and it's causing a huge battle within you, there's a war going on within you, there's no use. Understand the ego and free yourself from the ego. Why? If you break this barrier of ego within you, there's a whole new world that you can experience. But in order to do that, you have to understand. You have to apply your intellectual capabilities. You have to say, okay, I know what is right and what is wrong. All of you deep down, all of you, doesn't matter which part of the world you are in, all different walks of life that you come from, all of you deep down know what is right and what is wrong. And in spite of knowing what is right and what is wrong, you end up doing the wrong. And we start defining and saying, okay, there's no such thing as right and wrong. Everyone is doing the work in their own in their own perspective. No. An action, an activity has the way. Discipline is what is important when it comes to doing a particular action or an activity. When there's no discipline, you start saying, okay, things happen the way they happen. If you put your mind, if you put your body and your soul into the practice, into whatever activities that you do, everything happens the way it has to happen. Since there is no complete surrender from the inside, there's a lot of resistance. Doesn't matter if you've been trained by even the experts in that field, you'll always feel miserable. Except that, okay, by doing the actions that I'm doing, by doing the activities that I'm doing, I am strengthening my mind. Each and every activity, each and every actions of yours should help you, make you feel free in the mind. If by doing those actions, being with those people, doing those activities is making you feel okay, you're feeling sick in the mind, move away. Be in a place, I always say this, I'd rather be alone and be happy than being with a person who's not right. Doesn't make any sense. Once the mind starts to become strong, intellectually you'll start to understand, okay, what is right and what is wrong. And then you will have ego. Ego will exist, but it won't disturb you. This ego that you will have as a result of strong mind and discriminative intellect will help you free yourself and break this barrier that exists for yourself. And that is when you start doing things beyond your capabilities. You do the unthinkable. And once you start doing the unthinkable, a new wave of energy comes within you. And when this new wave of energy comes within you, you will start to feel, okay, I am alive. You don't need a person to make you feel alive. You don't need a situation to make you feel alive. You don't need to go to another place to make you feel alive. The only person who can make you feel alive is you. And once you have this understanding, each and every day you open your eyes, you experience freedom. Each and every day you close your eyes, you experience your freedom. I hope this brought some sense of clarity in you. If you have any questions, please do feel free to share them in the comments below. I'll do my best and answer them as soon as possible. And if you have anything else that you wish for me to share, please do share them also. I'll try my best to share them as soon as possible. If you wish to learn more, you can just go through these links. And I'll see you in the next one.